Well, good afternoon, everybody. My clock says we are just past noon, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I think I know many of you, but for those of you who are new to these calls, I'm Jay Byer, CEO of the Greater Des Moines Partnership, and thank you so much for making time to participate today. We got a big group joining us today, which is fantastic. We got a lot of great updates that we're going to be sharing with you today. So again, thank you so much for all you're doing in our community right now. Continues to be tough times, but definitely feels like we are moving forward and helping define what that sort of next normal looks like. And that's going to be a big theme of today's call as well. So we're going to be focusing on a number of things today with our agenda. We're going to be hearing some updates on our short-term strategic plan metrics. We're also going to be hearing from some representatives from our convenience stores, from Come and Go and from Casey's, in terms of what the COVID-19 situation has meant for them and how they've made their pivots. So really looking forward to that discussion. Should be very, very interesting. And we'll also have updates again from our healthcare systems. We'll be joined by David Stark with Unity Point and Carl Keeler with Mercy One. And again, they've continued to just provide excellent guidance to us as a partnership in our region, and just have had this tremendous spirit of working together. So looking forward to that update as well. Then we'll be providing a preview of the DSM Forward initiative, which is a strategic plan, recovery plan that we're working on with the partnership board, along with leaders of Capital Crossroads. And then we'll be having, once again, calls to action in terms of what we're going to do moving forward. So thank you so much to all of you again for joining us. We did roll out yesterday officially, and hopefully you all saw, was our small business recovery grants. This was an initiative we talked about extensively a couple of weeks ago on this call. That is on the street now. So for those of you who are in the communities that are participating, make sure to share that information with the small businesses in those communities, and look forward to continuing to get that information out on the street. And then finally, I do have a very exciting announcement that is just coming out today as well too. But the Greater Des Moines Partnership it was announced that we've won a Mac Conway Award for Excellence in Economic Development from Site Selection Magazine. For those of you who are in the economic development world, know that Site Selection is one of the key publications for our industry, and to have that recognition is pretty fantastic. This award is awarded to the top local and regional U.S. economic development groups based on an index of corporate job creation and facility-related capital investment data calculated both cumulatively and per capita. So in other words, this is a award that all of us got together, right? All these great economic development projects that so many of you have worked on the public and private sector throughout our region. And so congratulations to all of you for that recognition. So with that, all that being said, I'm going to turn this over to Tiffany Tauschek, the partnership's Chief Strategy Officer, who will be giving brief updates on our short-term strategic plan metrics. And I would ask, if you haven't already done so, please mute your phone. Thank you so much. Tiffany.
Thanks, Jay, and thanks everybody for joining us today. We sincerely appreciate not only the time that you're investing, but also your investment in the partnership. So thank you. As you know, the partnership is continuing to work on our initiatives in alignment with our 3 short-term strategies, which are keeping businesses in business, keeping people working, and keeping our community healthy. And in alignment with keeping the community healthy, today is actually the DSM Day of Thanks. So we are so excited about this opportunity. It's a day-long community-wide celebration of our frontline workers. And specifically today, we're going to hear from David Stark and Carl Keeler, but there are many, many others. We want to make sure to lift up and recognize them for all of their work on the front lines. Mid-American Energy, the Iowa State Patrol, and Polk County Sheriff, Des Moines PD, and Des Moines Fire Department trucks are going to be making a loop around Iowa Methodist Medical Center, Mercy One Des Moines Medical Center, Iowa Lutheran Hospital, and Broadlawns Medical Center at 2 o'clock today to show their appreciation for the frontline staff. We have heard from quite a few media that will be there covering it too, but wanted to make sure you're all aware that that's happening. and we want you to participate. So tonight at 8:30, you and others across the region are encouraged to help light up the community. So light up your home, your workplaces in red, white, and or blue. Also want you to step out onto your balcony or front steps or driveway while practicing social distancing, of course, and shine flashlights, your cell phones, holiday lights, you name it, and just really cheer and celebrate those that are on the front lines. So we do want you all to participate, and as you are participating, please be sure to post about it, take some photos and share those on social media, and include the hashtag DSM Strong. Speaking of the DSM Strong hashtag, it continues to have really strong engagement with more than 33.5 million impressions and more than 4,500 posts on social media. So thank you all for all the stories that you've been sharing, and please know we continue to be eager to share stories of strength, positivity, resilience from you and your organization. So share those stories with us. There are two virtual events that I'd like to make sure that everyone is aware of. The first is the Downtown Farmers Market presented by Unity Point Health Des Moines, and this is called the Virtual Market Meetup. We hosted our first virtual market meetup with DSM TV this just past Saturday, and it was a great success. We had more than 17,000 people watching the video on Facebook Live, and we are hosting another virtual market meetup this Saturday at 8 o'clock. So our goal with this is really to connect those vendors with buyers, because we know how important it is to support local businesses. So the second virtual event is In for Lunch, and that will take place tomorrow at noon. And Sarah Routh is the featured entertainment for that. So grab some takeout and join us for In for Lunch tomorrow. So both of these virtual events support our efforts to keep businesses in business and continuing to leverage that DSM local hashtag. So we of course have been partnering with Catch Des Moines on DSM Local Challenge, but want to invite all of you to continue to help us supporting those local and small businesses. The DSM Local Challenge hashtag now has almost 35 million impressions and more than 3,400 posts. So thanks to those of you who have been contributing to that through social media as well. So providing resources, virtual programming, storytelling, these continue to be top priorities of the partnership in alignment with those three short-term strategies. And since the COVID-19 pandemic started, we've had more than 125 blog posts that we've shared specific to COVID-19 response, and now shifting more into recovery. We've also launched 3 new podcast series, Leading in Times of Challenge, DSM Employment Ready, and the DSM USA weekly podcast. We'll share links with you to those on the chat function. And we've also hosted more than 30 events with a number of more coming up in the next week. So we'll be sure to share that website link with the schedule in the chat box as well. So of course, again, looking to leverage you, your expertise, and share other stories from you with DSM and really the world as we can. So please share with us any news that you can so we can help pass word along about DSM being so strong. And with that, I will hand it back over to you, Jay.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Next up, really excited about this next presentation. For those of you who were on this call last week, know we heard from the grocery industry and heard from CEOs of Hy-Vee and Fairway, and really some insightful information in terms of what they're dealing with and how they've made their pivots. And today, equally exciting, we're going to be hearing from leaders of 2 of our great business leaders, and specifically for convenience stores. So and so much more than just convenience stores too. And so with us today, we have Kyle Kraus with Come and Go, and Doug Beach with Casey's. And so I'm going to have Kyle go first, and look forward to hearing some insights in your industry and seeing what we can do to be helpful. Kyle.
And Jay, thanks for that kind introduction, and everybody, thanks for having me virtually here. I think as the kind of the question teed up is, as we sit in the world of essential workers, you know, what happens? What do we do? What's our opportunity and obligation as Come and Go and really all of our Kraus Group companies? And I think the first thing that we tried to do is look after our associates. And we did that in the sense that, you know, we went back to March 16th, started paying all our our store associates $2 more per hour. We've continued to pay them that extra $2 per hour, just trying to give them some type of financial support at this time of unknown. We also offer them free meals in addition, to think about not worrying about where that, what you have to do from a meal standpoint, like we all worry about, and what we're doing. And then we also wanted to make sure they knew that that their schedule was set and they were assured their hours. And so we've taken, we made a conversion last year to taking a high majority of our associates to full-time. And we told all of them, I mean, you're going to get paid, you're going to work your hours. We're not going to change your shifts around. We're not going to do anything that's affecting our business and have it affect you. And so we tried to step up also in that standpoint and tried to say, what can we do to look after them? We did the same thing at Cross Gateway Center. Told our people there, we're not cutting pay, we're not cutting staff, we're not cutting anything there, that you are, I guess, safe in that one sense of what you're doing, however safe it could be in this world that we're in right now. So that was kind of our first and foremost. And then, after that, you say, okay, what should we be doing for our communities? And I think certainly what Tiffany was talking about, what we could do today from a Care Day standpoint, we tried to look and say, what could we do? And certainly, like many of you have done, we made donations, right? You write checks to people. Another move that we did is we took all of our pledges. Sometimes you get an opportunity to make your charitable pledges over multiple years. We went ahead and made those pledges and paid them all today. We wrote checks for about $1.7 million to say, hey, philanthropy, nonprofits, you need that money. We're there, we're with you. The money's good. Now it's in your checking account instead of our checking account. And we did that. I talked about the donation side. You make the monetary ones, and you also make the food and supply ones. It's as simple as giving our healthcare workers free pizza and dropping it off and thanking them and thanking what they're doing and trying to go out and do it. And our people just love it, right? It's a chance to make days better, and it's fun for them to be able to do it. And it's fun for us to do it. And certainly we've continued. I feel really good about what our company's done for the last several years on food rescue. And that food rescue program that we put in place a few years ago is all the more important today. And so our associates are thrilled and excited to continue to do what they're doing on the food rescue side and continue to build upon that and that need that we have across all the 11 states that we're in. And then just maybe a slight pivot over to, and we've made some donations in our other businesses, but I think one move I was proud that we made on our Kraus Group real estate side is we waived all rent for our residential tenants for the month of May. And I think in some ways those associates, and probably those residents are customers of Doug's company, my company, and many of your other companies. And if we can give them a little relief in what they're doing and a little relief in their life and a little bit of trying to take some of this pressure that we're all feeling for what we're doing today away and make them hopefully feel a little better. On the customer side, just briefly, we made a couple moves that I was happy with. We have full service gasoline now in all come and go stores. Now, I started working in our company when I was 9 years old, as all my kids started when they were 9. I used to pump full service gas back then. None of my kids did pump full service gas, and now come and goes back to offering full service. And so it's kind of a fun thing, but it's also reducing touches for people, and they like that part. Another thing we did with truly a minimal viable product is we have curbside delivery now. We have curbside delivery in the sense that call us, we'll get it, we'll bring it out to you, we'll figure it out kind of how to do it. It's, automation is coming, but we just want to get to people and also give them a little peace of mind. And certainly, store cleanliness is a part of disinfecting the store 3 times a day, doing all those types of things. You want all your retail stores to clean, but it's that much more important today. So I could probably go on and on for what we have done. Proud of those moves that we've made, but I do think if you look going forward, I think things like cleanliness is going to be more important to people today than it was last week and last month. I think the move about technology continues to advance of what happens, including taking away touches. People don't like touching things right now. I'm not sure they're going to run back to say, how can I touch more things in the future? So we'll continue to work on our relationship with our customers to make that more touchless, but certainly keeping our associates first and serving our communities become first and foremost of what we're doing. So Jay, like I said, I could talk 20 more minutes or 4 more hours about our company, but I'll leave it there and let Doug talk about the great things they're doing.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for the insights and the updates. And also, you didn't mention this, but thank you for your leadership, ongoing leadership to bring pro soccer to Greater Des Moines. We really appreciate that too. So it's an important thing that long-term we still need to keep top of mind. So That being said, next up, Doug Beach. Doug and I go back a long way, great friend as well. And Doug serves as our chair of our Economic Development Committee and on our board as well. And I should also mention Kyle is on our board too. So Doug, thank you for joining us this morning, and thanks for all that Casey's has been doing.
Thank you, Jay. And again, thank you for the invite. Darren Rebell, as our CEO, sends his regrets and happy to do the update for Casey's. This is going to sound a little bit like Kyle's because we're doing many of the same things, and I get the chance to visit about Casey's response too, but wanted to share some good news to start out with. As many of you saw, Monday we introduced and entered into a partnership with Feeding America, which is one of the largest food distribution networks in the country. We made an initial $500,000 donation, which will go to 52 food pantries in our 16-state area. So we're excited about that. We've all heard the news about the need for food assistance and school children not being able to get meals because the schools are closed. So we're excited to partner with Feeding America. And this comes on top of the 40,000 pounds of food we delivered to a couple of their food banks over the last couple of weeks. So we're excited about that program. The other program I wanted to highlight a little bit that we just introduced a couple weeks ago that builds on our brand Here for Good is our program called Slice of Thanks. And in that we give pizza and pizza slices to essential workers like EMTs, nurses, nursing home folks, policemen. And in the last couple weeks, we've given over 8,400 slices of pizza to that. So our store employees and team members really enjoy the program, and people are thankful for the donation. So our response has been, it's been an interesting time, and it goes back to what Kyle said. We're here to help our communities manage this crisis. They're going through it just like everybody else is, and we're helpful that we're there as an essential business to help them get through this. We've known for a long time that our team members, our drivers, our service techs are critical workers, and they're the frontline workers, and now happy to see that everybody, understands that. But it's been great for us as an essential business that we've been able to stay open and make sure we're supplying these communities with what they need from food and fuel and supply. So much like Come and Go, we gave all our critical workers beginning in the middle of March a $2 pay increase for all our full-time and part-time employees, including all those people that can't work from home, which would be our store members, our service techs, our drivers, everybody like that. So we understand they're critical, and we want to make sure that they're taken care of and they've got some financial security in this time of crisis. So happy to do that. Also increase the pay, weekly pay for our supervisory staff in the field in that too. So that's been helpful. Done a lot of things, and I think Kyle mentioned some of these too, that really try to protect our team members and our guests that come into our stores. And that includes enhanced cleaning of all the food services, all the touch point, fuel pumps, all those things in the stores on an hourly and almost, numerous times a day basis. We've also installed plexiglass in all our stores to protect our clerks. We have signage on the floor for social distancing, and we've reduced our hours a little bit so we have more time for cleaning and things like that. We've also authorized masks everywhere. Also, some states require masks, so we've got those taken care of. At the beginning of this, we had to stop self-service too, which is an important part of our business. And so have people have to ask for those donuts and pizza and soft drinks and things, which is a thing you have to do at these times, and we're happy to do that. So also, like Kyle said, we got to sell differently now. And so we're like them, working on curbside pickup. We introduced a partnership with DoorDash, which we added 579 new stores to that and new products. We also have contactless delivery on where we don't have to pick up the stuff from anyone. We can just deliver it. So we're looking forward to that. Some of the challenges coming up are how to reopen our store service support center, how to ramp up self-service, and dealing with the continual PPE issues. So again, I could talk for quite a little bit of time, but in respect to your time, we'll stop it at that.
Thanks, Doug, and thanks, Kyle. I'm going to start with my own question, if that's okay. It's kind of a double question. So we've seen a lot with what's been happening with the international oil markets, and then also just in terms of the reduction of people driving just because of working from home and less sort of travel in general. What has that meant for you with those big picture issues, and in terms of your industry and your businesses specifically? And then have you seen any changes here in the last couple of weeks with maybe people traveling a little bit more? Have we seen any of those patterns?
Doug, I don't know what you could say as a public. I'll let you go first. I can say as a private, I could say more stuff maybe.
Yeah, again, we're a public company, so I can't say anything. I think I can say that volume has picked up the last couple of weeks, and people have started to open up their states a little bit. But it's been a challenging fuel market. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think, again, I could say a little more than Doug, but we're both living the same life. I think certainly all you have to do is look at all of your behaviors and say, how have your behaviors changed? And, I'm sure everybody on this call is driving less, therefore buying less gasoline. And I think that's the reality of where we are today. You can look at national miles driven numbers, and you have numbers where it's almost a 50% reduction in miles driven. And that's dramatic for just how people are living their lives. I mean, yes, it affects Doug and my companies more specifically, but people are just not out. And I think to your question about what's happening in the more near term, yes, you're seeing those gaps closed. You're seeing sales of gallons being better than what they were and what they have been, as people either getting tired of staying at home or comments about things being able to open up a little bit.
Thanks for your candor. Very, very interesting to see what's happening out there, and good to see those patterns are moving in the right direction. I think that's very thematic for what we're going to be hearing about here at the rest of the call here today too. This is a question for Kyle. Is fueling service available at every come and go?
Yes, we're doing full service everywhere. Trying to I mean, there's an hours constraint. It's not 24/7 for maybe some of the obvious reasons, but during the day, we are doing full service everywhere. Are people enjoying it? It's a chance to go out and interact and talk to our customers in a different way than our people have probably ever done it. So yes, thanks for asking. Well,
thanks to both of you for your leadership and for making time for us today. Just as a personal commentary, I think it's, we're going to be today with what we're doing to celebrate our frontline workers and our Day of Thanks. Last week we highlighted the grocery industry and said the same thing. And I think with your industry as well too, that your folks are on those front lines and doing an incredible thing to keep commerce moving. So I think it's important for all of us on our calls, when we are going to Casey's and going to come and go, that we take that time to be kind to those workers and thank them, and that civility could never be more important. That's what we do as Iowans, but just think of that too when you go to a Fairway and a Hy-Vee and to Casey's and come and go. Make sure to be kind and thankful and know they're working under tough circumstances. So that's my one additional call to action for all of us.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. You bet.
So again, with our Day of Thanks, it's, I think, very appropriate that we're going to be hearing again today from two of our amazing healthcare leaders who have been with us before on these calls and continue to provide us tremendous guidance. And every time I hear from them, I learn more, both in terms of healthcare and just in terms of smart public policy and how they're sort of handling this. So today we have Carl Keeler with Mercy One and David Stark with Unity Point. And I know they usually coordinate who's going to go first. So gentlemen, who's going first today?
Well, I think I'll get started, then I'll turn it to Carl. And so thanks for having us back, Jay. And I want to say a special thanks as well Catherine, Tiffany, and the crew for putting on today's Day of Appreciation. The parade that's coming up, I'm looking forward to it. Our staff are excited about that recognition. And then tonight, it's just another example. And you heard both from Doug and Kyle what they've done too for our team members collectively for recognizing them on the healthcare side of things. It's just another reminder of how great a community that we're in. And this week in particular is also Nurses Week. So first of all, if there's any nurses on the call, happy Nurses Week. But as the single biggest group of our team members, and the same thing with Carl and his team, and the same thing at the VA, and the same thing at Broadlawns, this is a special week to celebrate our nurses. And they would argue every week's Nurses Week, but in particular, it's this week. So we are pleased to be able to present again today and talk a little bit about it. And Jay, one of my goals, since everybody that's been on this for a couple times, is I want to have something new for you. I want you to be able to learn something new each time and not hear the same thing. So I'll see if we can pull that off today. Angie, thank you for the first slide. Those of you that were on the last 2 weeks have seen this regularly. I've started each one with this. This is the most current. Actually, it's a day old where things are at in Iowa. So the picture of Iowa, as of today, we're up to 10,404 cases positive in the state, and 219, unfortunately, Iowans have passed away. The testing number has been a nice improvement. We're over 61,000 easily now of Iowans who have been tested. So that gives you a sense, a little bit of the magnitude in the state. Now let's be a little more specific about healthcare. A lot of concerns, if you go to the next one, Angie, a lot of concerns nationally that you've seen in major areas like New York, New Orleans, Chicago, Detroit. It's overwhelmed the healthcare system. Well, that has not been the case here in Iowa. But to give you a sense, here's a picture of the state, and this is currently how many patients are in hospitals across the state that have COVID-19. And that's that first number of hospitalized, 407. Now, to even draw a little more attention, and Carl will talk more specifically about the regions here in a couple of slides, over a third of those cases are actually in hospitals in Des Moines. Mercy One, ourselves, Broadlawns VA. And so we have become more and more of the epicenter of where patients are being hospitalized. That is not uncommon. For our ability to treat a larger area, we have great referral relationships, a lot higher end of care, more capacity. And I'm very proud of the fact of how well our local healthcare teams have stepped up to the plate and have met that demand. And we still have capacity, and we still are seeing the peak yet to come. Here in Des Moines. We still think that's probably a week or two away. We thought maybe it was last week. That's still growing here, and that'll be the next slide, if you would, Angie, where it gives a sense, and Carl's got some of the similar data for Mercy. This is just a admission trend for us, for Unity Point Health, starting back when we saw our first patient on March 16th, on kind of where it's been, and each of those dots talk about how many daily admissions we've had in that trending. So you see it's still going up. That's my comment about we haven't seen quite the peak yet to say we're on the back end of it. And that's not the case. Eastern Iowa is probably a little farther ahead of us. Wisconsin is, Minnesota. Here in the central region, and you've heard about Sioux City, we're still seeing, and some of that's with additional testing, but with our nursing home outbreaks, we continue to see more patients. It is not all doom and gloom. And so one of the things that between both Carl and Mercy One and ourselves, we see some hope, and hope is in progress. And today is one of those days we've started doing, on a very limited basis, elective surgeries again, elective procedures. A lot of precautions, not jumping in full bore, not a light switch. I've said that before on this call. But that's something that is at least a positive of, even in the midst of how high our volume is, we continue to kind of keep an eye on the future, on getting through this. And some of that is just a little bit of normalcy. So we're really, really pleased that we're able to continue to do those things while being able to meet the needs of our community, but also the whole state. Both of us have been helping Sioux City. We've helped Marshalltown and Waterloo. That's part of who we are and part of why Des Moines community is so good. The final thing, and I'll turn it to Carl for the next couple slides. I heard a quote, or I remember it from the movie The Martian, which is toward the end, and I think this fits a lot of our businesses. It does with us. Matt Damon says at some point, everything's going to go south on you. You can either accept that or you can go to work. And your healthcare team has gone to work. And I know all of you have as well. And we're going to continue to do that, be there day in and day out, and we want to be part of that solution to getting us back to more of a normal life. So, Carl, I'll turn it to you for next couple slides.
Hey, thanks a lot, David. And I would like to echo what David said with regard to, one, thank the partnership for putting together the Day of Thanks. I think our healthcare workers have gone above and beyond, and it is nice to get that recognition from the community, although there's obviously lots of people that have done that in their own businesses and had to adjust. So thank you to them, as well as Nurses Week. It is a big part of who we are, and they do an amazing job. So the slide before you actually looks at the number of total positive cases that we have seen every day in Iowa. So as you can see, just kind of where we're at, and as of yesterday, we had 408 new cases, but the trend continues to go up, but it is slowing down a little bit, and that is the midst of us testing more. So what we have seen is our general population has been okay. We have had these hot spots, and quite frankly, if it wasn't for some of the meatpacking plants that have had these positives, that has been a number of the larger manufacturers have been the major impact for the state. And when you have seen in Sioux City, in Waterloo, and even in Dallas County and Perry, and in Newton, some of these areas, that has been our hotspot. And quite frankly, it's the spouses of those workers that have then been some of the transmission into some of our nursing homes and others. So it is, how do you manage kind of business as usual for those large manufacturers that are vital to our overall vibrancy of our not only our state but also our nation. So, but if you go to the next slide. So as Angie, if you just go one more, there we go. So this actually shows by the region. So David had a slide that showed our different regions. We are part of Region 1, that RMCC 1, so you can see how many daily positive cases we have within our region, and then how many daily tests that we are doing amongst Test Iowa, amongst Unity Point, all Mercy One, or amongst all of us. What are those tests? So you can see nationwide the average is right around 16% of a positive rate, and you can see ours has come down, and that's partly because we are doing significantly more tests. So as we test more, and we can really find out where those positive cases are, and then can do the tracing to follow up with those people and make sure we are following the quarantining and those other things to really help minimize the impact of this virus. So I think that we're starting to, as David said, starting to see kind of the end of that light at the end of the tunnel, and as we start to bring those outpatient and those elective procedures back, it is difficult to shut, just as in all your businesses, shut everything off for a certain time period. In our case, as we look at some of these people, 2 months ago when we stopped doing these procedures, it may not have been that urgent. Now, if you wait a couple months, now it becomes more urgent. So we're looking at how do we bring those patients back and make sure we're cognizant of those people that don't have COVID, and how do we make sure we keep them safe. So that's why all of our facilities, everyone coming in must be wearing a mask. We have all the caregivers have a face shield as well as a face mask, and meticulous hand hygiene just to make sure everyone is safe for those non-positive COVID patients coming back in. So rest assured, we have had a very, and it looks like David has an example of a face shield that all of our, now I don't know if many will be like his face mask, but his face shield, all caregivers wear those within our facilities to make sure we're keeping everyone safe, both our patients as well as our staff.
Always provide a little show and tell here, Jay.
I like that. I like that. So we have
Dr. Wallig's really laughing. I can see that when she's like, "What is that on his face?"
Well, Carl and Dave,
She should
Carl,
know.
David, go ahead,
Yeah.
Carl.
No, I was going to say she should know what that is. We sent over a bunch of face shields to Dr. Wallig also.
Well,
Awesome.
Carl and David, thank you so much. We do have a couple of quick questions here. So the first one from Creighton Cox. What is the current testing process? Are all tests going through two-step verification and sent to the state lab as well as local? And how quickly are results coming in?
Carl, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, so I think there are multiple testing options. So each of our facilities have on-site testing that we do test. So for example, if a patient comes in, is asymptomatic, we test those, and that's done in a rapid fashion. So both of our systems have tests that we can do that we get results essentially under an hour for those type of, for patients that are coming in. Any inpatient, every inpatient, we both test all inpatients, and anyone that is going to have an elective procedure, we test those prior to the procedure to make sure they're negative before we do that. We do have Test Iowa. Test Iowa, you do have to go out and take the survey, and if you meet criteria with the survey, then you'll set up a time to go do that test. But if you don't meet criteria, you wouldn't be eligible to do Test Iowa. And so they are increasing those tests. The state hygienic lab has been from the start that key lab that we have been working with. Both systems are all the providers within the state. The numbers that we have been sending to them, as well as Unity Point, as our testing capabilities have improved, has decreased. So we used to send every test to the state hygienic lab, and they originally had about a 24-hour turnaround. It went up to about a week. They've been able to get that backlog down, and it seems to be back to that kind of 24 hours, 48 hours time period to get that test. We also are doing some outpatient testing, both Unity Point as well as Mercy One. We've partnered with Corteva to do that outpatient testing. That we get the results in that day, and I know Unity Point is doing some of those same things within their own lab and getting the quick turnaround. So there's multiple ways that we do testing. Upon discharge, we're also doing testing, and I think Unity Point is doing the same thing. So as we discharge patients, if they've been asymptomatic within the hospital, and we're discharging them to either our nursing homes or back to home, we want to make sure that they are negative as we discharge them, because if we did send them out that they were positive, even though they may not be, they don't need to be in the hospital because of their disease state, we want to make sure that people are aware so they can, again, care for those patients appropriately and make sure there is an additional transmission of the virus. I don't know, David, do you want to add anything?
You covered it perfectly.
Thanks. That is a big question out there. So thank you so much, Carl, for a very thorough answer. And one last question for David and Carl. What's the latest update on antibody testing, and do you see a need for an increased amount?
Yeah, the answer is yes on both. It has started to become more available to do that, and really the big reason behind antibody testing is a more broad-based test to know who's been affected by this, or who's been exposed to it, I should say. And if you can detect antibodies in somebody's system, that would show that you have, and debate is still out there, how long is immunity, how strong is immunity, et cetera, but at least give some sense in a population of how widespread have we been exposed to this. And that not only speaks to kind of the reopening that we're talking about now, but it will speak to what inevitably will be round two when the fall comes, after Halloween and into the winter, as this acts, we think, a lot similar to the flu, that it'll be cyclical. And if you have that herd immunity, if you can get to that 60–70% of a population that shows this, or shows they've had exposure to it, that goes a long way towards getting back to normal. So we don't have it widespread right now, but it is increasing, and I think there needs to be more of it, and there needs to be more testing, to what Carl was saying. What else would you add, Carl?
No, I think you're right on. It is not that it is a diagnostic, and doesn't mean you won't get it again. What we have seen in some of the other countries is that the virus is mutating, and so it's not a guarantee. But I think from a population health standpoint, you really understand what percentage of the population have had even though you might be asymptomatic, and I'm sure people on the call right now, that there's a percentage of the people on the call that have had it or have it right now and that are asymptomatic. And that's why our increase in testing, so even if you're asymptomatic, you can shed the virus. And so it's important, that's why it's important for us to get more widespread testing out there, especially as we bring our businesses back to work.
Well, thank you so much, Carl and David, for joining us again. Once again, I learned a ton, and thank you so much for making time for us. We know how busy you are, and I know everybody greatly appreciates all you're doing and your efforts to keep us informed and to provide us that guidance moving forward, which I think is the perfect segue into our next presentation. So, the partnership, as Tiffany had mentioned early on, it moved into a sort of a triage strategy of a short-term strategic plan, and you heard a lot of those updates. But over the last few weeks, the senior team has been working on what that next strategy looks like, and specifically moving into more of a recovery phase. And so we have been looking at best practices from some of the top research and consultants from across the country and across the world, and made the strategic decision to bring on Baton Global, who is a global consulting company, but they're based here in Des Moines, and some folks that I think that many of you have worked with before. That team has been led by Matthew Mitchell, who I'll be introducing here shortly. But as we talk about recovery and the DSM Forward initiative, we put together a DSM Forward task force, which is basically made up of the Greater Des Moines Partnership Board and leadership from Capital Crossroads. And really, as we're moving forward, it's really important that as we look at this strategy and these playbooks, that it's smart and it's safe and collaborative, and all the decisions that we're going to make are going to be very much driven by science and aligned with our healthcare leaders, who you've just heard from, and in collaboration with them, along with our public leaders at the state and local level. So we're very much going to be aligned and collaborative with them in building out what that opening looks like with best practices by industry. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew Mitchell with Baton Global, who has just been doing a fantastic job. That we have moved at light speed to put this thing together, and look forward to his presentation. Matthew.
Jay, thank you very much, and I'll take this opportunity first to echo the thanks to the first responders, to those healthcare leaders, to those nurses in our community. That's pretty exciting. At Baton, our very first tagline was "In Des Moines, serving your world," and it's in these crucible moments, it's in these crisis moments where we get called into service, and it's just been fantastic to be able to live into that mission with a partnership and work with a world-class team that executed a world-class initial response to this. I would like to move us pretty quickly forward into the DSM Forward planning process, and then also share with you some pretty exciting updates here within the last 48 hours on the ability of the partnership with the DSM Forward Task Force to communicate these things out. So I would start by saying we started the process with a few commitments. First of all, being expert-led, being informed by science, committing to speed and getting information into the hands of our community members that need it most as quickly as possible. We committed to planning for different phases and stages of this recovery process, understanding that the virus may come in waves, but also businesses' appetite, employees' appetite, citizens' appetite to get back into society will come in phases and stages. So we've reviewed hundreds of documents, different plans throughout the United States and the world, and settled on a plan that looks like what you see here on the screen. And I'm going to go through a few differentiating aspects of what this plan provides to the citizens, employers, employees of the Greater Des Moines area. First of all, I think we are going to be providing some professional guidance. So as we looked at plans, the part in the middle with the industry guidance was pretty standard. Some communities have that information out there in the public domain, and those are great plans, and we definitely referenced and leveraged that. but also we wanted to go beyond and say, okay, if I'm an accountant in a firm, what specific guidance from my functional area do I need to have? So that's the first element, is the professional guidance. The second element is this industry guidance. We've developed a brief risk estimator. And so we'll show you here in just a moment 3 different categories of risk that you need to think about. And then definitely sharing recommended practices in these different industries is critical. Finally, we wanted to make this responsive. So we included an interactive FAQ process to be able to solicit questions from the community and then respond to those in a 12 to 24-hour period. So this is not just information that's nice to have, but not useful. It's actually practical, applicable, and is in the voice and responding to the needs of individuals, employers, vendors, and customers in this community. So as we walk through the build out a little bit, here are the different aspects of professional guidance. You'll see human resources, finance and accounting, information technology, etc. I would like to call out our special emphasis, understanding that this crisis affects all of us differently. So thinking about, infusing diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout all of this thinking and planning, and also different socioeconomic classes and how this crisis impacts us all differently. I'd then call to your attention some different industries that we've profiled, and the industries are able to grow. These are the, I think, 14 or 15 that we started with, and then we've added a few since that time in preview. Just as a very quick overview, and in the chat function, I have created the opportunity for you to take a community survey. And we've had this community survey for about 5 or 6 days, asking questions like, what data are you using to reopen? What additional data do you need? We've had about 100 responses, but I want to show you some of the main responses that you may expect. Identifying questions about workplace safety, returning and reopening, social distancing, and the accessibility and availability of PPE are all right at the top of the list. So with that, I would, and I'm very excited to show you these preview links of the different playbooks for the DSM forward planning process. What you can now experience, and hopefully in a few short days will be rolled out publicly, will be a restaurant playbook with the estimated risk at the top. Could be a manufacturing playbook like is shown here. And as you will see, a defining feature of this is the 3-dimensional risk categories. So first one is frequency. How many people do you interact with in a day? The next one is duration. What is the length of that typical interaction? Finally is variety. How many different people do you come into contact with throughout the day? We've profiled a sample for a medium-sized manufacturing facility, or if we come over here to the retail aspect, this is a clothing retailer risk profile, just a very sample, but you can use these categories to estimate your own risk. Then, and this is what we think to be very exciting and very useful. What's the current state? So what are the trends currently in this industry? What are the future trends? What are the recommended practices? And these are all pretty standard, but I will draw your attention to these community partnerships. I think Jay and Tiffany and all the leadership at the partnership encourage us to take an offensive strategy. If we can solidify the ties that bind us together by raising up and highlighting innovative ways that organizations and individuals have responded to this crisis, then that's going to be good for us in the long run. So here's an example where Boz Prince partnered with the Rook Room to be able to respond to this crisis in a very dynamic way. We have other examples featured on every page where individuals and organizations in our community have really stepped up. So with that, Jay, I will turn it back to you for any Q&As, but just to show on the screen, this is an example of that professional guidance for either information technology or HR professionals, again, ordered in the categories of health and safety, business practices, opportunities and threats, and then always referencing and aligning to local, state, and federal resources. So, Jay, that's a very quick overview, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you so much, Matthew. I would remind everybody to please take that survey if you have not already done so. The information we've garnered has been very, very helpful. And again, great job to Matthew and your team at Baton Global. Also do want to give a shout out internally to Tiffany Tauschak, who you heard from earlier, who's done a great job of helping quarterback this for us internally. But this again has gone very, very quickly. And again, you know, as we move into the recovery phase, this is not about us making the decisions in terms of when things should open. This is basically the playbooks as to when these decisions based off of healthcare and science, and working in conjunction with the governor's office and our state and local governments, when those decisions are made, what are those sort of playbooks to be used so that we can be as effective as possible. And I do think that as we're moving into the recovery phase, and there's a lot of discussion that's been happening about this, but how do we learn to manage to move forward, knowing that there probably won't be a vaccine for a while, and how do we best manage that, and how do we get back on the offensive side in terms of the economy, at the same time being able to work within those confines and to follow those best practices with health and safety. And that's that sort of balance we're trying to achieve. And again, so glad that we have our partners with Unity Point and Mercy One to help us guide through that, along with our great relationship with Polk County and the state of Iowa as we work through this together. And that's the only way we know how to work here at the partnership, is work regionally and work collectively with public, private, and nonprofit partnerships. And so we're going to do this, and we're going to do this smart, we're going to do it safe, and we're going to do it collaborative, and we're going to need all of your help moving forward. And we need to embrace civility, and we need to embrace common sense, and that's what we're going to do. You're going to be hearing a lot more about this in the upcoming days, but glad we're able to give you a preview. If you do want to talk more individually with any of us on this, please let us know. And so at this point, I'm going to actually turn it back to Tiffany for our calls to action. And Matthew, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Jay, and thank you, Matthew and the Baton Global team. Really appreciate all of your help. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us today. So I'll breeze through just some quick calls to action. The first is a reminder of the Small Business Recovery Grants. We will drop a link into the chat box so you have access to the web page and that information. Just a reminder, applications are being accepted until May 20. So a huge shout out to all of our community partners that have helped push this forward. Really, really appreciate it. Additionally, as you just heard, the DSM Forward initiative and strategy that we're all working on collectively, that community survey is in the chat box. Thanks, Matthew, for dropping that in. So encourage you to share that with your teammates, your colleagues, so that we can have input from the community. We want this to be as inclusive as possible. And a reminder that the DSM Forward playbooks will be industry specific with recommendations for each specific industry. So this will continue to evolve, and we will be updating information. That's part of the benefit of it living on a website, so we can go in and as the environment changes and and recommendations are made, that we can update that real time. Again, looking for strategic partnerships to highlight. So if your organization is partnering with another organization because of this COVID-19 situation, we want to highlight that and lift that up and share that through our industry-specific playbooks. And we are always looking for content, whether it's videos, blogs, webinars, poll quotes, information after you've had a chance to interact with the DSM Forward playbooks. We would love to hear your input and ongoing feedback on that as well. Reminder, today is DSM Day of Thanks, and the appreciation loop around the hospitals begins at 2 o'clock today. The link to print out signs and have more information about DSM Day of Thanks is in the chat box, but reminder, step outside at 8:30 tonight. Please continue to practice social distancing, but hold up your cell phone or flashlight, turn on your house lights or your organizational lights in red, white, and blue, and let's honor all of those that are doing so much for our community in a really challenging time. Be sure to post those photos on social media, tag the partnership, and use the DSM USA or DSM Strong hashtag. And then reminder, In for Lunch is tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Link for that is also in the chat box, as well as the virtual market meetup on Saturday, which is just a fantastic way to connect with some of the vendors from the Downtown Farmers Market. And also I'm told that there will be some Mother's Day ideas, so it's not too late. Mother's Day is Sunday for those of you that need that little reminder. Great way to support local businesses and use the DSM Local Challenge hashtag while supporting and interacting with those Downtown Farmers Market vendors. And then also we'll have just a quick, on the next slide here, a quick look at upcoming events. DSM, or excuse me, In for Lunch is tomorrow. I think I skipped over that one, but In for Lunch is tomorrow, so be sure to join in for that, and then all of these other events. And always looking for content. Again, please continue to reach out to us. No one's going to tell our story for us. We as a region need to continue to work together, to collaborate, and we welcome the opportunity to be helpful to you in any way that you need. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Jay.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. And just as another reminder, we'll be having another investor and member briefing next Wednesday at noon. We've already got a lot of great content, announcements, and some insider information that we've got lined up for next week. So hopefully you all can join us again. Just wanted to share a quote that I shared with the DSM task force on Monday, the DSM Forward Task Force. And this is by Marie Curie. And I think it's very important for us to think of things in these terms right now. So it's nothing in life is to be feared, is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so we may fear less. And that's what we need to do moving forward, is how do we sort of live in this next normal? How do we manage that risk? And how do we keep our economy moving forward? And that's what we're going to step up to that challenge collectively together across our region, across public, private, and nonprofit. And we're going to move this region forward together, because that's what we do. That's what we know how to do. So thanks all of you for joining us today. We'll see you next week, and until, and probably see some of you before that. But thanks for all you're doing to help keep DSM strong and your support of the partnership. We very much appreciate it. And again, we'll see you next week.